today Carles Puigdemont. Carles Puigdemont is the political leader of the Catalan separatist movement, and he's agreed to come here to talk for 10 minutes, in English hopefully, and take questions for at least 50. But this will be discussion, and but he has agreed to answer your questions, so we'd like to see some good questions, please. But as I said before, we don't want interruptions, we want a conversation. We like to disagree agreeably if disagreement is going to be had. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Well, I thought before I have 20 minutes, not 10, but I will 15. Okay, right, done. Well, I'm very grateful to be here in the Frontline Club, and thank you for its invitation. Thank you to all of you for attending, and to everyone everywhere in the world who's following us via streaming. I want to welcome to Laura. She's a wife of one of the Catalan prisoners. His husband is on a hunger strike, as you probably know, since 13 days. I'm a citizen of Catalonia, a country that has had a very long journey throughout history. Along the way, we have had to overcome many obstacles in order to defend our individual and collective rights and freedoms. But we are not tired. In spite of the many adversities we currently face, we have a great democratic hopes for our future as a people. Despite the repression of our civil and political rights, I must tell you that we remain determined to fight for our right to self-determination. The case of Catalonia is the case of the Catalans, is the case of democracy and dignity. We are an age-old European nation with our own culture, language, and institutions. We are a country with talent and creativity, with passion and ideas in every field, like other independent countries. Ferran Adrià and el Germán Roca in gastronomy, Antoni Gaudí in architecture, Salvador Dalí, Joan Miró, Antoni Tàpies in art, Manel Estellés, Bonaventura Clotet in medicine, Pep Guardiola in sport, and they all share the same origins, culture, and hard work, and an arguable international calling. We want to be a country with a voice in a Europe of citizens and peoples, a Europe that must make its founding principles prevail, and in this regard, while we respect the decisions taken by a referendum and accepted by the British Parliament, we are concerned that the European Union is about to lose one of its historic cornerstones, the United Kingdom, and an arguable benchmark for understanding the construction of Europe. The so-called Catalan case can only be resolved by democratic solutions. This is why the government that I had the honor to lead held a self-determination referendum which took place on October 1st, 2017. Despite the repression and intimidation of the Spanish state, what the vast majority of Catalans who went to vote decide was that Catalonia had won the right to have its own voice in the world. 2.3 million Catalans from all ideologies dared to vote despite the violence of the Spanish police that caused 1,000 injured people. Unfortunately, the October 1st, 2017 referendum, we endured the rage of a Spain that wants to silence our voice. A Spain that showed its most undemocratic face, applying the same recipe used during Franco's fascist dictatorship. Violent repression of the fundamental rights and freedoms of the citizens of Catalonia. When freedom of expression is repressed, the rights of more than 7.5 million Catalans, the more than 7.5 million European citizens are violated. Far from establishing a political dialogue, Spain has chosen to put in prison democratically elected politicians as hostages in order to subject, intimidate, and silence political pluralism. The judicialization of ideological disagreement and the criminalization of citizens' legitimate mobilization is the authoritarian recipe that Spain has so far used to avoid the paths of dialogue and negotiation. Spain's legal action against our democratic movement has led to the imprisonment of the Vice President of the Government of Catalonia and of 5 ministers, the President of the Parliament of Catalonia, and 2 leaders of our country's most important civil associations. It has also led to the exile of 4 ministers and myself, the President of the Government of Catalonia, as well as 2 members of the Parliament of Catalonia. We are all accused of crimes of rebellion and sedition, comparable to an armed military uprising that are subject to prison sentences for 25 years. It is an outrageous contradiction, because you will not find any violent demonstration or action undertaken by the people being persecuted. Quite the opposite. We reject violence in all its forms. As well as imprisonment and forced exile, there is a campaign of judicial harassment against over 700 Catalan mayors, public officials, social institutions, the media, businesses, education centers, and artists and activists. This wave of repression is unworthy of a state that calls itself a constitutional democracy. The lack of separation of powers has allowed a perfect storm that they use to crassly intervene in Catalonia's institutions of self-government for months, illegally and illegitimately, justifying it on the grounds of Article 155 of the Spanish Constitution. A constitution which was approved 40 years ago, subject to the constant threat of the army. A constitution that is now out of date and obsolete. The injustice of the Spanish legal system, which is subject to the dictates of the executive branch, has shown that there is no clear separation of powers in Spain. This is not a characteristic of a Western democracy. 4 representatives of our democracy, 3 ministers who were members of my government, Jordi Turull, Josep Rull, and Joaquim Forn, and Jordi Sánchez, a member of the Catalan Parliament, the president of the majority pro-independent group in the Catalan Parliament, and a former president of the Catalan National Assembly, have been on a hunger strike in prison, 2 of them from 13 days and the rest for 9 days. Today, a mayor of Catalan town, Montblanc, has announced he are joining the hunger strike too. They are on hunger strike to denounce the arbitrary nature of the Spanish legal system, and that is a denunciation of the continued breach of fundamental rights, including the presumption of innocence, freedom, political rights, and the right to legal process with all due guarantees. However, the hunger strike is a message of hope that symbolizes the spirit of resistance of a society that does not accept impositions. Appeals have been filed in the Constitutional Court against all the violations of the rights of the Catalan political prisoners by the Spanish magistrates. But in fact, it is that court which, instead of defending the rights of citizens as stipulated by the Spanish Constitution, has imposed an arbitrary blockade that prevents referrals to international courts, and in particular the European Court of Human Rights, which is where we trust we will receive justice. The blocking of appeals is not coincidence, as they know perfectly well that the crimes we are accused of are not accepted in a democratic Europe. A few months ago, the German justice system refused to accept that I had committed the crime of rebellion or sedition. That was our victory and a defeat for a Spanish judicial system that was forced to withdraw all the European arrest warrants that those of us in exile are subject to. The representatives of the people of Catalonia who live in Belgium, in Scotland, like Clara Ponsatí, who is with us in the room tonight, and in Switzerland, can move freely as any other European citizens. The violation of the European Convention of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights are obvious in many of the rulings that both the Supreme Court and the National Court have issued against the political prisoners since October 16, 2017. When the first preventive detention orders were issued against Jordi Sánchez and Jordi Cuixart, and yes, our Catalan political prisoners have been in pre-trial prison for more than 1 year. Spain will have to answer before the European courts for it. We will not stop denouncing this abuse. That is why I'm here today with all of you. We Catalans have already suffered from too many episodes of repression throughout our history. In the last century, 9 of Catalonia's 11 heads of government have faced exile, jail, penalties, or the firing squad as a result of a Spanish political repression. While we are free of fear, the Spanish state can do nothing. We have every right to exercise our right to self-determination and become a new state, a legitimate aspiration recognized in the United Nations Charter. And in order to achieve this, we will never stop calling for dialogue and international mediation. Like you, we come from an old parliamentary tradition. Today, I once again denounce the Spanish violation of the civil rights of my country's public and social representatives, and by extension, those of all its citizens. And I'm doing so here in London, in England, a country with which we have a special feeling of gratitude for many shared stories. Remember that after the Spanish Civil War and the beginning of the Franco-fascist dictatorship, the government of Catalonia and thousands of citizens had to go into exile, fleeing repression. In 1940, one of my predecessors, Lluís Companys, former Catalan president, was arrested by the Gestapo in France and returned, extradited to Spain, where he was shot after. Those were years of darkness that we thought will never be repeated. Unfortunately, we were wrong. The Spanish threat is once again casting a shadow over the history of Catalonia. At that time, many continued on their journey to this city where we are today. And in 1940, the National Council of Catalonia was formed in London. And it operated during the Second World War as a government of Catalonia in exile here in London. One of the members of that council was Dr. Josep Trueta. During the Second World War, the British used a treatment for soldiers wounded at the front that my compatriot discovered, a method that saved the lives of thousands of soldiers because it fought against gangrene very effectively. I'm telling you all this because Dr. Trueta was a free citizen in your country, where he wrote and published a book entitled The Spirit of Catalonia, in which he denounced the situation of Catalonia under the Franquist oppression. The book contains a brief extract that I will like to recall here. Dr. Treta said, superficial observers may assert, as some have asserted in the past, that this time the problem of Catalans has been settled forever under the pressure of a totalitarian regime. They will be proved wrong. More than 70 years have passed since the publication of that book. Again, this time, the Catalan people will prove wrong those who thought that democracy and self-determination could be defeated through prison and exile. So thank you very much for attending.
Feedback problems. Okay, questions. I'm going to hand the microphone. Please try and talk into the microphone. Please introduce yourselves and say if you are a journalist working for somebody.
Hi, Mr. Puigdemont. First of all, thank you to the Frontline for organizing this event. My name is Samuel Abidjan. I'm from Castelldefels, Catalonia. And I just wanted to do a very quick question to you, and hopefully you can answer me briefly. So you've talked about the authoritarianism in Spain. So I wanted to ask you, who's more authoritarian? A government that declares independence unilaterally, or a government that applies the rule of law? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Of course, who is more authoritarian is he used the violence. And you can see clearly... that is a good question. And look, there is a lot of independent countries. Some of them accepted members in the European Union who has joined independence through a unilateral decision. So that shows something not unexpected in our world. But using violence against peaceful people, trying to vote, that is a show that authoritarian regime. And finally, we decide all our decisions in a parliamentary chamber, in a legal parliament, legitimated, elected by the Catalan people. So all of our decisions were taken in front of our representatives. That is a clear characteristic of a liberal democracy.
I'm going to go here.
Good evening, Mr. Puigdemont. My name is Teresa Vidal. I am from Roses, Girona, so probably you know where it is. When you talk about Catalans, do you know that there, as you have always divided good and bad Catalans, probably I am a bad Catalan, taking into account that at least 50% of the population in Catalonia does not want independence, at least 50%, it was told yesterday by Mr. Tardà in the Parliament of Spain, so it's nothing that I am making up. 50% of the Catalan population, 50% of Catalan doesn't want independence. People in England, please know that, acknowledge that. The question is, what was your plan for this 50% of the population? Did you want us to be foreigners in our own place where we were born? Did you want us to go to exile? Or did you want us to go to war, as Mr. Torra has suggested recently? Which were your plans?
Well, thank you very much for your question, Teresa. I know perfectly Roses. I married there. So it's a wonderful city in the Costa Brava. Look, if you want to talk about what what many Catalans are supporting, independence or not, the only way to know that is to call a referendum to ask people, because if the case was, if to remain in Spain is supported only by less than 50% of the Catalan population, is enough to remain in Spain? Such few support, it's enough? You are right. You must know how many people are in favor or against independence, and it's absolutely legitimate to be against independence of Catalonia. I never, and you never will find in my speeches talking about bad or good Catalans. I only talk about Catalans, and it's perfectly legitimate defend Catalonia independent or not, but it's not more legitimate defending to remain in Spain than to be an independent state. It's the only way that democracy has invented to solve that kind of problems is to ask the people. And can we arrange an agreement in order to ask people and respect the results? Because I will respect the results if the Catalan decision is to remain in Spain. You respect a decision when saying Catalonia will be an independent state?
I will have no choice. If that happens, I cannot do anything. I just will go to live to Madrid, and that's it, or stay in London. By the way, he didn't answer my question.
Let's have one. We'll have one from the back, please. Okay.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you for being here today, Mr. President. I, as many of the Catalonian people that is here sitting today, were defending a polling station the 1st of October of 2017. Many of us were not even Catalan. I'm from the Valencian country. Or my partner that is British, we were all there just defending the right to decide of Catalonian people. My question is, what happened? So many of us will have defended your government against wherever had come, and yet nothing happened. Why?
Well, this is a very interesting question too. In the 1st of October referendum, we start a path that we know is a very long and difficult path, because we decide to be independent without a war of independence. And that is something new, because the majority of the countries accepted into the family of the free nations achieve its sovereignty through violence. And we decide to show another path, to improve and modernize the right of self-determination. Because the right of self-determination is a tool of peace, it's not a tool of war. Of course, there is no user manual to know every step exactly. But we start that path in the 1st of October, and it's a path irreversible. Today, Catalonia is more independent than 1 year ago. Today, Catalonia is a de facto political subject. It's not de jure. Of course, no one has recognized an independent Catalonia. But a lot of people around the world recognize Catalonia as a real, de facto political subject. That shows we are in the path. We are progress in the path to be recognized one day as an independent republic. And when that day arrives, we will look to the 1st of October and say thank you to all the people who defended the ballot boxes at that very historical day.
Hello, my name is Paul Mason. I'm a British journalist. I work for the New Statesman. And I covered both the 1st of October in Barcelona and the Scottish referendum here, and recognised some very clear similarities. So the question I'm going to ask you is the same question I would ask the Scottish nationalists here in Britain. What is the strategy and what is the time scale? Because I was in Spain 2 weeks ago, and that is what your critics were saying, who I critically support you. There is no strategy, and the time scale is not clear for independence.
Well, the strategy was clear, was to start a dialogue with the Spanish state in order to respect the results of the referendum. If not, to start a dialogue and start to work with the project, the political project from Spain for Catalonia. And that was impossible to do, because we thought we were living in a real Western and liberal democracy, when that kind of problems are solved or resolved through a dialogue. We didn't expect that kind of attitude, quite different from the attitude from the British government concerning the referendum of Scotland. Of course, we have a plan, but that plan needs to have in the other part of the table, the other side of the table, a democratic counterpart, a democratic interlocutor. And Spain has resigned, has disappeared as a democratic partnership for that dialogue. So it's not our fault if Spain has reacted as an authoritarian system or regime. We expected, like other democratic country, when more than 2 million citizens express their voices, saying we want to vote, the reaction is to say, okay, we are listening to you, we need to arrange that, and we need to start the talks, how can we solve that issue. But unfortunately, since the beginning, the Spanish state only has explained with the language of war, the conflict. It's not talking about politics, it's talking about police. As you can see yesterday in the Pedro Sánchez statement in the Spanish parliament, we expected to hear something about politics, and he has talked on policy, to send more police to Catalonia in order to continue the repression. What kind of strategy is that?
Barnaby Eels, I'm a journalist. I'm just following up on that. So are you saying currently there's no talks between the Catalan government and the Spanish government? Or what's the state of talks, or are there talks going on behind the scenes?
No, the only talks are related to very material issues, investments or not ordinary matters. But there is no one single political discussion about the main problem the whole world has seen. All the world has seen there is a problem between Spain and Catalonia. And that is a clear case of right of self-determination. And we want to talk about that. Of course, we accept if the Spanish government want to propose to us, for example, a new statute of autonomy. His rights to do that. But we have the right to sit on the table to explain clearly to the Spanish government why we want to be an independent state, and to propose several paths to do that. My last talk with the former Spanish Prime Minister, Mariano Rajoy, I proposed to achieve an agreement over the date. Is necessary to call a referendum next year, or can we find an arrangement, not like in the case of the French and New Caledonia, waiting for 30 years, but why not 5 years? First, we are disposed to talk about the date. Second, the question. Of course, we want to vote if Catalonia could be or not independent, but the Catalan people could choose between independence or a kind of devolution max. Third, what kind of majority we need in order to apply the results? It's enough to have one vote more than the rest, or like in the case of Montenegro's referendum, we need, for example, support more than 55% of the voters. I suggest several times to the Spanish authorities to talk about that. So we showed our disposal to talk, to dialogue, but unfortunately we received from the former government, from the cabinets Mariano Rajoy to the new cabinets of Pedro Sanchez, a no, a big no. We don't want to talk with you about that issue. So what kind of dialogue could allow that scenario? It's a crime to discuss about a right that Spain recognizes, because Spain has signed it, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights in 1977. Spain recognized the right of self-determination, but didn't respect that right for Catalonia. We want to talk about that. It's not a crime.
President, welcome to London. It's Amar Anwar. I'm lawyer for Clara Ponsati. But also one of the Scottish nationalists that my friend earlier on spoke about from the back. I think it's unfair to, I agree with you, I think it's unfair to try and complain about the Scottish situation because, as you said quite eloquently, 9 out of 11 of our prime ministers or presidents or leaders have not been jailed, exiled or executed like they have for Catalonia. But the question I want to ask is, it's pretty obvious there was hope. To some extent, political parties in Scotland and the UK talked about when Pedro Sanchez came in that he wanted a political solution rather than a judicial solution. It's obvious from yesterday he wants no solution, he will not negotiate, that Spain will not negotiate. So the question that arises for me, speaking as a lawyer, is the trials are due to commence in January. And looking from the outside, it is obvious that there will be no justice, that the Spanish Supreme Court will do what they wish to do. This is a political prosecution and a political persecution. So in that event, what do you think that the leadership, both yourself, Quim Torra, and the Independence Party, because I'm not letting off the Independence parties, because all those Independence parties, what do they do come January? Do they wait till the end of the trial? Do they start at the beginning of the trial? Because every time I've been to Barcelona, people have said, what's going to happen next? Yes. What are we going to do?
Yes, thank you, Amar. And probably you heard also another word, unity. Unity. I think it's the moment to strengthen our unity, our political unity. Of course, we are talking about what kind of strategy or reaction we must to improve or must to make when the trial starts. It's only that can I say publicly. Of course, we are discussing that. Our political prisoners must know we support, we work for them, we speak for them, and we're fighting for them. And they are not alone. And we try to share with others democratic societies around the world, and in particularly in Europe, to ask for their solidarity. Because it's not a trial only on 9 democratic people. It's a trial on European democracy. That is clear to be said. Because if the democracy are threatening in a part of the European Union, that concerns a whole European society. And that is our goal. that is one of my duties living in exile, to share with other countries, Switzerland, Finland, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, Germany, United Kingdom, to ask people help Catalonia. Because helping Catalonia is help European democracy. And that trial must be seen as a trial against the fundamental values of Europe. In that Europe we want to live. And it's a shame to put in jail political representatives who has not killed no one person, for more than a year in a pre-trial prison. That is a shame. So we are talking on how we can act when the trial starts.
Okay, I see lots of questions. I'm looking for a Spanish journalist. I'd like to give some Spanish journalists an opportunity. Do you have a Spanish journalist who'd like to ask a question? Are you a Spanish journalist?
Hi. Yeah, I want to ask a bit of a personal question, not too personal, because I know you don't like to talk much about your personal life. But I'm just thinking, there's a lot of talk from the other side about all these families that are now broken, they don't talk to each other, people don't go to each other's house during Christmas anymore. What do you think about that? Do you think that's true? Do you think people are just making that up?
Are you, thank you very much. Are you talking about the royal family, the Spanish royal family? Because, because as you can see, there's very significant troubles. Look, families always, yes, the families,
in answer the question, would you?
Families in general, the problems in the families has no relationship with politics. The serious problems, the families. No, it's health, it's the future, economics, like something like that. And that is the reality, not only in Catalonia. It's a problem for the Spanish families to discussing about republic or monarchy, because that discussion has a start in several universities in Spain. And as you can see, that last week, more than 20 Spanish universities has called for a referendum over monarchy and republic. So,
hang on.
Look, yes.
Excuse me.
I tried to explain my position. The only families broken in Catalonia are the families of the political prisoners. The families who but you are right. No, but you are right. This is a matter of discussion in the family. Yes, like others. I imagine the Brexit debate in the British families, because the danger, the risk to split families, we decide to not discuss about political problems. I want to live a strong democratic society that could allow that kind of debates without drama, without creating a crisis. The only problem we have is not we share a very different point of view. The problem is there is no tool to solve. There is no respect to the tool of democracy to solve that kind of problem, because that kind of problems will exist forever. And a society, a responsible society, needs to know how to manage that kind of problems. Imagine when one day in Spain there will be a huge debate about monarchy and republic. I will assure you that could represent a discussions into the families, but a strong society could allow that kind of debates without a drama. It's a political discussion, and the political discussion has never to do with my family, for example.
Okay. Look, in this room there is clear support for Carles Puigdemont, and that's good. But I would like to see people give people the space to ask questions properly without being drowned out or clapped out, please. Okay, we've got a question at the back.
Yes, I hope this is not going to divide the audience. What I want to talk about is our roadmaps. Now, I should announce who I am. Sebastian Balfour, London School of Economics. What has been absolutely clear is the roadmap towards independence has been a united roadmap. It's been very, very clear. Yeah. What I've never been clear about in discussions with some of the leaders of the independence movement in Catalonia is what is the roadmap if and when Catalonia achieves independence. Now, could this be to do with the fact that people in the independence movement are coming from very different ideological and political directions, and they would want their objectives, once independence has been achieved, are also very different?
Well, you are right, talking about the ideological differences inside our pro-independence field. You are right. There is from anti-capitalist, anti-system groups to the liberal Christian Democrats. You are right. And that means we have different approach to how must be the Catalan Republic. But we share the same main objective, the same goal, to achieve democratically, peacefully, the path to independence. That probably needs a lot of patience and to be disposal every time to dialogue with the Spanish authorities, which is not now the main possibility. Despite this, of course, we never will renounce the unilateral way to be independent and to ask one day, sooner or later, to the international community to recognize the Republic of Catalonia. Our roadmap consists to open both alternatives, both strategies to achieve our independence project. That needs time. For example, when we voted for Pedro Sanchez in the motion of confidence, Pedro Sanchez has become a prime minister with our votes. We do that because we expect if there is a new Spanish political generation, more modern, more open, if they have a project for Catalonia. But despite this, also we are committed to respect the Declaration of Independence on 27th of October last year. The time for Pedro Sanchez is finishing. We are waiting for a clear project. And as we saw yesterday, Pedro Sanchez has no idea, no one single positive idea to put on the table to start a discussion. So probably that starts a new era in which the way of unilaterality is not excluded.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Paul Pardo here. I'm from Caldes de Montbui, Catalonia. I'm really happy to see you can be here today and you can work wherever you want in the world with any out problem. I'm really happy for that. My question is, I want to know which is the new steps that you're going to do with the population and with the government to can continue the process in Catalonia.
Well, that moment demands exiges unity, political unity. As we can see, seeing the Catalan pro-independent society, which is very unified. After let some time to new Spanish cabinet to express its project for Catalonia, and once we have proof, we have there is no one single strong project for us. I think we must to reconstruct the strategy of unity that has allowed us that big victory of the 1st of October referendum. Without that, it's quite difficult to progress. It's quite difficult. But that is not against pluralism and different roles we have, we need to do. We need to fighting in Madrid, in the Spanish Parliament. We need to fight in European institutions. We need to fight inside the Catalan institutions. We need to fight from exile. Different rules, but we need a unified strategy, more stronger than ever, because in front we are facing serious and very important challenges.
Okay, have we got any other Spanish journalists? We haven't had enough from Spanish journalists. Any Spanish journalists got a question? Are you a Spanish journalist? Okay. Please can you announce your name and paper and things like that, so that we know where you come from.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Celia Massa. I'm the correspondent for different Spanish media. I have two questions for you. The first one, the Spanish government has made clear that they are not going to talk with the independent Catalan as long as they are not follow the rule and the constitution. So it's been clear that they are not going to move the strategy. So again, in terms of your strategy, if you could tell more details, and if you endorse the violence in order to achieve your goal, and what is your opinion about the current violence by independence group in Catalonia? And the second question, if do you support the Slovenia model for Catalonia?
Well, thank you very much for your questions. Well, the who must to answer your question is the Spanish government, because it's the Spanish government who has decided not to talk with us. So they must explain why they decide not to talk about the problem that the whole world are saying. A former liberal Spanish leader from Madrid, when they have sent me the right to not discuss, the right to not talk, it doesn't exist in a democracy. They has the duty to talk. So if they decide not to talk with us, with a majority of parliament elected, democratically elected, I think that shows there is a problem with democracy in Spain. Because what's going on with 2 million, more than 2 million Catalan people? Are we excluded the right to discuss, to expose our democratic project? Is Pedro Sánchez a prime minister for the whole Catalonia or not? Or only are governing only for a half of the population? So it's the Spanish government who must to answer that question, because we are ready to talk. Violence, the only violence we have seen was in the 1st of October referendum. You can prove, we can see since 2012, every day, millions of citizens took in the streets without one single problem, peacefully. We show how we are. We are a peaceful, democratic people. No one other European society has the power to mobilize such number of citizens without one single incident. So please, if you want to talk about Catalonia and violence, look at the people, look at our history, and you will see whole society, including people against independence, very committed to peace. Look, for example, the huge demonstration in Barcelona against the war in the Gulf War, or demanding accepting the refugees. That shows a very peaceful society. I'm very proud to have been a president of that people. Finally, concerning Slovenia, I was in Slovenia several weeks after the Declaration of Independence in 1991, and that I saw was a peaceful people, a peaceful and a democratic society, proud of its democratic path to be independent, and they were forced to face a violent aggression come from Yugoslavian army. And the question is not if the Slovenian way is the way or not. Is the Serbian way the project for Spain? Is the Serbian way the answer that Spain are disposal to do once Catalonia exercise its peaceful right of self-determination? Don't forget, Slovenia now is a member of the European Union. It's a free country. It's a democratic country. It's a very, very strong democracy society. It's not correct to put that kind of shadow over its history, because Slovenia has fight for democracy. And, well, we only are calling for a single way, a democratic way. And democratic way could represent several alternatives. But our way, our Catalan way, is a democratic way. It could be interesting to know what is the answer from the Spanish government when we are asking them what kind of way are they disposal to do or to follow in order to prevent the independence of Catalonia. I exige to the Spanish authorities an explicit renouncement to the using of violence, a commitment to not use violence, because our commitment is clear. We never will use any kind of violence in order to defend our project. I like to hear the same answer from the Spanish government. Please ask them.
Okay. Now, look, there are lots of questions still, so we're going to do two questions at once, if possible. So we're going to do two at the back there. So two people there.
Yeah, a very quick one. This is Carlos from the Catalan National Assembly. A very quick one, Mr. President. If you could go back to the 10th of October 2017, what would you do different? Thank you.
Okay, next question. Pass it to the person over there.
Hi, Enrique from Mataró, but been living here for a very long time. Would a federation in Spain be a solution?
Okay. In the 10th of October, I decided to suspend the Declaration of Independence in order to open a window of dialogue, because in our talks with the Spanish government since the 3rd or the 2nd of October till the 10th, they explain his will to start talks with us, and they were very explicit on that. I was wrong. Yes, it was a mistake for me. It was a very hard day for me. But in order to keep my responsibility, my duty as a president, in that moment, was to privilege the way to dialogue than the unilateral way. Because if one side of the problem, in that case the Spanish government, are saying to you, well, we are listening to lessons from the 1st of October, probably you won, but you are not enough, but we must discuss, etc., etc., Well, my duty as a president is to privilege that way. So I was wrong because that was a fake. The intention was not honest. 10 days after that, they start repression. The Geordies were in jail. And we know the Article 155 details that show was a real coup d'etat. I'm sorry, but we must learn about our mistakes. There will be no second chance for Spain, not for Europe, because at that time you received several messages from Europe saying, please, don't do nothing unilaterally, because we need to have, we will need to help to discuss with Spain. Okay, but our lesson from that history is in the next occasion. There will be not a second opportunity for Spain. Enric de Mataró, in the long of the history of the Catalan movements, the pro-independence, to demand Catalan independence was always a minority. So the majority will of the pro-Catalan political movements was to find an agreement with Spain in order to modernize, Europeanize Spain, because they thought they see that way the very good way in order to be respected as a nation within the Spanish state. We have nothing against Spanish people, nothing. Our troubles, our problems are with the Spanish state. And we thought if we help Spain to modernize itself, to become a confederation or a federation, I'm quite sure we will not at that point today. More precisely, if the Spanish Constitutional Court was to respect the decision of the two parliaments, the Catalan and the Spanish, and the results of the referendum, we will not be at that point today. Don't forget, in the end of 2010, when the Spanish Constitutional Court has sentenced it against Catalan Statute of Autonomy, the number of pro-independence MPs in the Catalan parliament were only 14 for 135 seats. 14 in the end of 2010. 4 years after that, we were 72. So that shows always Catalonia has worked with Spain, helping several Spanish governments, the right, the left, facing challenges together, like NATO, like European Union, like the financial crisis, etc., expecting one day, if we need improve our self-government, we receive the same attitude. We were wrong, and for that, we start saying, well, the only way we have in order to protect ourselves is to try to be an independent state.
Okay, so we're going to do two questions on this side. The gentleman in the brown suit, please, and oh dear, lots of you. I'm sorry, we're going to go there. We'll do 3 questions. Let's do 3 questions in one.
Okay, just very quickly, because you asked if there are other journalists in the here tonight. I'm actually a British journalist based in Spain, so my name's Tim Parfitt, and I'm very interested in the international media coverage of events in Spain and Catalonia. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. And a couple of things, if you don't mind me just trying to explain that point, is you live very well in Catalonia. I've lived there 10 years, and the international media can see that everybody lives very well in Catalonia. So one of the questions is always from the international media and our international readers is, why would you want independence anyway? Okay, the second question, which I know you are all pushing for the EU to recognize. You yourself, Mr. Puigdemont, said no one's recognized your call for independence. there's a lot of other things going on in the world, in the EU specifically in this last week. I mean, we have Brexit, we have the French strikes, we have everything going on. I mean, there are major issues in the world. I'm not saying the issues of the violence on the 1st of October by the Spanish police and nor the issue of the politicians in jail at the moment aren't major issues. But how do you feel about the international media coverage of the Catalan issue? And how, if ever, are you going to ever convince the EU to take it more seriously? Thank you.
Okay, well, let's answer that one because there's a lot there. So.
Okay. The international coverage of our crisis is the most confident way to know what's going on. Because they are independent. The international media are independent. And sometimes are empathic with our project, sometimes very critics, but we need both attitudes. And we, in order to know what's going on in Catalonia and in Spain, as in the time of dictatorship, we need to read again international media in order to know what's going on in our country. As a journalist, I look the job done by the international, the foreign correspondents with a huge interest and a lot of respect. When I'm facing an interview with foreign journalists, they sometimes are very critics, but they has done an effort to make questions as independent journalists in order to know, not to fighting for a political project, in order to inform their readers what's going on in that important part of Europe. I think we need to analyze from the journalistic point of view the contrast between the coverage from the international media and, for example, the Spanish media on Catalan crisis. I think it's very interesting from the academic point of view because we are talking about one of the fundamental rights of a democracy, the right of freedom of expression, freedom of information, and for me, the media are part absolutely necessary to build a democratic society. Concerning the European Union, we are working on one way. Before demanding official recognition, we need to improve the knowledge about Catalonia. Because, as probably most of you have seen, there's a very powerful propaganda machine from the Spanish state, explaining fake news, like, for example, the Spanish language is banned in the Catalan schools, for example. And we need to improve the knowledge about the reality of Catalonia. And of course, the reality is not my reality, but my reality is part of that reality. And we ask the European countries and European institutions, not only ask the Spanish government, but also ask to Catalan side. If they want to know about what's going on, if they want to make a clear position on Catalan crisis, their duty is to ask also both sides, no one single side. And when we start to do that last year, especially last year, we discover the European society, more than the European institutions, are very interesting to know what's happening in Catalonia, because they feel concerned about the threat against fundamental values in Catalonia. They don't want to live in a silent Europe regarding that violation of fundamental rights. And we start to talk directly with the European society in order to improve the knowledge about Catalonia as the best way to join the governments. Of course, I have in touch with several countries, not publicly, but of course, I have in touch with several political parties in government, in power, or in a position. But in every country I visited, I met representatives from those countries.
Carlos Puigdemont, you have answered questions now for the hour that you promised. Are you okay to answer some more?
No, thank you very much.
You had enough, or some more questions?
Yeah, for me, but I don't know what the rules of your...
well, I mean, you've done what you said you'd do. If you want to ask answer more questions, we can ask if there are a couple more questions.
A couple more questions.
Couple more questions.
Okay.
Okay, but I want to prioritize questions from journalists, please. I'm sorry. So, are there any journalists with questions? Okay, there's a journalist, he says. Please introduce the paper or program you work for.
Hello, Owen Bocock from The Guardian. Can I ask, are you now confident that you can travel anywhere in Europe without being arrested, other than Spain? And can you give us any indication of what other countries you're most hopeful of gaining recognition from?
Well, the second part of the question, it's, I think I must be prudent, as you probably understand. Yes, I'm a free European citizen, like all of you, I suppose. I have freedom of movements, like freedom of expression, without no fear to be put in jail for using that right. And I cannot do that in Catalonia. But you are right. Every time the Spanish authorities could present a new European or international arrest warrant against me or against other members in exile. But I will facing that risk. I was arrested in Germany. I spent 12 days in the prison and 4 months under conditional release. After that, I traveled around 5 countries. Outside the Schengen space, and 1 outside the European Union. And I will continue to do that, despite the risk that represents, because when I decided to join, to live in exile, was not in order to be silent or quiet, in order to continue fighting. Probably one day I will be arrested again. But I trust in the European justice, like I trust in the German justice. And when German justice has to decide about the crime of rebellion, they was clear, there is no rebellion. So why, I will ask again, why there are 9 people in pre-trial prison in Spain accused by a crime that the German justice doesn't accept? Is not a clear case of abuse of the pre-trial detention?
Okay, we have the last question, and I'd like it to be from a journalist. I'm a television journalist. Any television journalist got any questions? No, not very questiony. Okay, final. A journalist with a question, please. Journalist with a question. Okay, we've got one last question in the corner.
I'm cheating. I had an op-ed in The Guardian today. But I have worked for the Catalan government, and so I guess I have some standing. I've worked on, my name is Khan Ross, I've worked on self-determination struggles all over the world, in Kosovo, South Sudan, Somaliland, Western Sahara, and Catalonia, where I worked with your predecessor, Artur Mas, for several years. And my question is about what you said about democracy and referendums, because you said democracy has only one way to decide independence, which is referendums. And I was wondering if you had considered whether there was another way, which is the assertion of independence and self-government.
It's working.
Oh, I'm sorry. The assertion of independence and self-government by action, not declaration. The referendum strategy has so far been a failure. You don't have independence, and several of your leaders are in jail, and there is no sign that the Spanish government is going to give it up anytime soon. And referendums, as we've seen in Britain, have very negative side effects. They are very divisive, and even the most ardent supporter of independence in Catalonia cannot claim that you have overwhelming support for independence, as they had, for instance, in Kosovo or South Sudan, where 98% of the people voted or would have voted for independence had they the chance. That is not the case in Catalonia. Have you thought about drawing on the anarchist traditions of Catalonia, what Ada Colau is doing with Barcelona Comú, and a municipalist approach to self-government of asserting autonomy and self-government by actually practicing it, rather than waiting for somebody else, namely Madrid, to allow you to have it?
But I think there is no way for the Rose of Fire, the Rosa de Foc, for Catalonia. It's not time, really, to use some kind of violence in order to defend our right of self-determination. If action means direct action, non-violent, I agree with you. I agree with you. In fact, in the 3rd of October last year, we proved our capacity to the control of the territory. We proved we were able, using technology, using empowerment of the people, we prove we are able to control our land. And we are still, we have enough power to do that if that could be necessary. But always, that is my ethical commitment, always only in a non-violent way, because I believe in that. I don't believe in I believe in the right of self-determination as a tool of peace, not a tool of war. Several wars after the Second World War are the origin in the no respect to right of self-determination. So it's time to explain a case, to show to the world, we need to improve, to modernize the right of self-determination in order to protect peoples who try to do its project through the non-violent means. What is exactly the lesson that we can learn from our past in Europe, for example? Is acceptable that the only way to be respected as a nation, or as an independent nation, is to kill each other? For me, that is unacceptable. And I believe also in the Spanish society. I believe in the Spanish society, which is also, I want to believe in its commitment to democracy. And I believe one day we will sit on the table peacefully discussing about our common future. And that starts with respect of each other. Respect, yes, the Catalan people, to not criminalize people who demand independence. I believe I'm working for that. And if that is my commitment, sorry, but I know a lot of people demanding, what can I do more directly in order to be recognized as an independent republic? I'm not looking the day of tomorrow, I'm looking the next generation. And we have not the right to transfer our heritage in blood. We want to build a democratic nation for all 7.5 million inhabitants we have. The shared republic, a peaceful project who can teach the world there is another way than violence to exercise the right of self-determination. And that is also in interest for the European Union. For that we call always the European institutions, please, Look at the Catalonia crisis, because you can find an opportunity to show to the rest of the world there is a European way to solve that kind of troubles that in other parts of the world means war. We don't like war, we like peace.
Thank you all. Thank you for your questions. Carles Puigdemont, thank you very much for coming and answering our questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Carles, president. Bé, soc Manel Carreras Goicoechea, el cosí del Xavi. I m'ha dit ara que ens hem fet un tuit i dic, soc aquí. Diu, home, diu, acosta't i digue-li, que li farà gràcia.
Els dos?
Els dos, sí, dels dos, del David també. Som més petits que jo, però bueno. Molt bé, que vinguis, que seguiu fent aquestes coses. Jo no volia preguntar, però no per preguntar el pla, perquè no l'hem d'explicar gaire, però endavant.
President,
Els parents de Palamós. Els meus parents o no? Sí.
Ella viu a Londres. Ella viu a Londres. Però jo de Palamós. Sí. Mira, pensa una. Pensa una amb ella. Aquest també estava a Brussel·les? Per l'assemblea de Palamós. Estem amb tu. Jo també. Moltes gràcies.